Okay, so we should be going live just about now. I'm here a little bit early with 6 of you watching. Hopefully there'll be more of you joining us for this exciting RPG update. So in this update we're going to be talking, well, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're talking about, but first of all, why don't you go ahead and say hi in the chat and tell me who is currently watching me on this stream. I don't think there's very many of you just yet, so hopefully there will be more coming along shortly at the appropriate time, at the mentioned time, and we'll be talking about the RPG. So I've on a tangent note, I'm really excited at the moment about the news for the RTX, the new NVIDIA graphics cards. I mean, obviously they're out of most people's price ranges, but it is super exciting to see that NVIDIA is going to be providing the essentially built-in support for. Oh, looks like I'm having some streaming issues already, which is great. Let's see if there's anything we can do about this. It says good over here. Maybe it's just me having trouble downloading. Let's just double check this out. Seems to be okay again now. Maybe I'll have a look at my task manager, keep that open, and see if anything is trying to hog any network. At the moment, the only thing trying to hog network is what you would expect to be trying to hog a network. So I'm not too worried about that. I could try and quit a few things here, just in case. Just in case. Maybe pause Dropbox and things like that. It's usually a good thing to do before you start streaming, rather than when you start streaming. Okay, so we've got 8 people watching now. Hey, perceptual utility, lots of buffering and very limited audio. Oh dear, that's not so good. I wonder whether it's getting better. I am getting a good uplink. At least Streamlabs is telling me I'm getting a good uplink. So I wonder what's going on. I'm getting a good uplink. At least Streamlabs. I might have had a double audio there. Maybe that's what you're experiencing. Might get it right just before the stream's scheduled to begin. Yeah, thank you, Pocket CS Nerd. I think that should be better. Is that actually getting better audio and streaming as well? I was seeing some buffering issues myself on the other computer I've got set up here to watch myself. Maybe this is a little bit better now. I've paused some things that I don't think were actually using any background internet, but just in case, they have now been paused, and I think that should be okay. Sounds great now. Thank you, John St. Clair. So it was probably the fact that I was both streaming down and streaming up. I'm going to pause the preview there, so I'm not actually trying to stream down at the same time as streaming up. Okay, so say hi, folks, in the chat. Are you excited to see what I've been doing with this saving system? I like a bit of an annoying thing. I wonder whether this will settle down or whether I might have to adjust some stream settings for my bandwidth. Do let me know if the stream is horribly behind or just not working very well for you guys. It'd be good to know. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to assume that everything's okay, and if it's not okay, shout in the chat, and I've got the screen at a higher eye level this time, so I shouldn't be having the problems that I had in the last Blueprint stream where I had my face full screened and you're all shouting and I couldn't see it in the chat. So now the chat's here at my eye level and I've got the screen at my eye level, so we should be A-okay. All right, so let's dive in. I know there's only 10 of you, maybe there'll be more people showing up. So I'm going to give a little bit of a recap of what happened in the last stream. So what have we got here? We've got a saving system. Let me just show you how it works first and foremost. So we can go ahead and hit play and let's see whether I'm already mid-game somewhere, probably. There you go, I am mid-game somewhere. I currently defeated the, I think Rick called her the Swamp Donkey. I might need to change my aspect ratio here to be a little less free. There, zoom out a little bit, there you go. So what I've got is an ability to walk around the scene. I introduced a pause menu that is activated with the escape key, like so. And you can see the menu options here. They might be a little bit hard to read. Maybe I can scale in a little bit. Are save, load, and return to game. So let me know, can you guys read that, or is it coming up really low res? For me, it's coming up really low res on the stream. Are you just getting a few random pixels? Let me know in the chat, please. A bit low. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you what it's saying then. You can see the rough shapes. Got a save, a load, and return to game. So I wonder whether this is the ultra low latency over on, because I'm getting a good uplink, fairly good, and maybe it's the ultra low latency settings because you guys wanted ultra low latency. You can still read it. Okay, well, if you can still read it, that's fine. It is actually low res on the screen for me as well. But if it's legible, then that's better than what I'm seeing on my screen. Cool. Okay, so that said, basically it's what you'd expect, a little pause menu that basically only does load and save stuff. So what it can do is we can save. Obviously, that's not going to do very much. It says, hey, you saved successfully, woohoo. But the other thing you can do, which at the moment doesn't do loading just yet, I'm going to get to the loading in a second. Well, that's the very next thing I want to do, and I'm almost there. But what it does do is allow you to see all the save games that you have already got. And it auto saves every, I think I'm doing it every 60 seconds. But you've also got the opportunity to manual save. In the game, we're not going to do it every 60 seconds. That's just a debug thing because I want to check that it's working and so on. But yeah, so we can do manual saves like that. And then the crucial thing is that if I leave the game and come back, it's going to reload from my latest save. So I'll go ahead and do that. Ta-da, my latest save. Yep. So I'm not, Liz, I'm not at 4K, definitely not. I'm at 1080p, so what kind of resolution are you folks getting it coming down as? For me, it's coming down, if you click on the little cog icon, it's on 240p, but I think that might just be my connection streaming it down, being really slow. So on your side, just shout out in the chat, folks, what are you streaming at? Okay, so you just saw that it loaded back where I had gone and saved from. Well, the other thing that's interesting is that it's also saved the state of our Swamp Donkey. So if I go over to the Swamp Donkey, let's go over to the Swamp Donkey. There is no Swamp Donkey anymore because I killed her, and it's remembered that particular fact. So if I go over to the guards, I will also show you that it remembers their health. So that's actually part and parcel of the same thing, but just in case you're wondering, also remembers my health. So you can see I don't have full health. I'd have to heal myself a little bit. There you go, healed myself a little bit to get back to full health, or some way towards full health. So here are the guards, they're attacking me, and I can attack them, and I can save. I've actually got a keyboard shortcut S for saving. I just want to show you that this guard's got like half health, and he might go on and kill me, but if I stop now, go back and play, then the progress bar for this dude is going to be, there you go, the death bar rather is going to be there at where I left off basically, and my health is, and everything, more or less the important things are being saved. So how does that work? How do I get it to save the important stuff? That is a good question. I'm glad you asked it. So the way this whole system works is hinged around, now obviously this isn't me teaching you, this is just me giving you an overview of what we've come to. So the save system, and I kind of told you guys, so those of you who were on the last stream, you kind of know some of this already. The save system, where is it? Under core saving, there we go, core saving, and it's this save load system. So I'm just going to go fire that up, bring it across, and here we are. So the idea of this is it uses serialization not being when you go and eat your cereal in the morning. Serialization is about the turning of things that are in memory, so state of your program, into binary that can be stored on disk. Everybody with me so far? And the idea of this class is that it aggregates all of the savable objects throughout the scene. So a savable object is something that has this savable entity component attached to it. And one of the things that I was really trying to do is make sure that these savable entities had a unique identifier attached to them. This meant that wherever this guy moves in the scene, wherever Rick chooses to move him during level design, you can go back and load the level. Let me rephrase this. I play the game. I have my progress through our world saved as a user. Then Rick goes along and makes a few tweaks to the level, right? Now, what happens when I open my save games? If he's tweaked the level and moved some guards around and maybe renamed a guard or something like that, changed the hierarchy of the scene, then we want to make sure that my save game will still work and still load. So that's the purpose of having these UUIDs attached to these savable entity components. Perceptual lucidity, tell me more about these addressable assets in Unity. What kind of assets are we talking about? Here I'm talking about assets that are in the scene. So maybe you're talking about assets that are on the file system, which would be slightly different. Here I'm just talking about putting on these savable entities on basically characters. So it could be NPCs, it could be the player, it could be the enemies. And it's just a tag. It really is just a UUID. And what I've done here is it's not complete. I've been told that it doesn't quite work. I was asking around in the Unity communities for this. But you can see that it's executed edit mode, which means that when you put this component on something, it will run update and it will run start when you're in the editor. And the purpose of this is so that you can set a unique UUID. It can be generated and then saved and then not touched anymore. So that's what we're doing that for, and we want it to be generated and saved only once the prefab has been plonked into the scene. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. I don't know whether it 100% achieves it, but it more or less does. And the weird bit here is the undo record object, which basically tells Unity that I'm about to edit this object and that it should, after the update has finished, check what's changed and save the old version in an undo and then update the scene file. So that's what's going on there. Oh, perceptual lucidity, that does sound rather interesting. The serialize. Maybe you could stick a link to some documentation over in the chat. How bad's the buffering for you guys? I'm getting a little bit of buffering at the mo. You getting buffering too? Currently got a good uplink. Well, fluctuating uplink. But the drop frames are looking okay for now. No buffering here. It's just me. It's just my computer that I'm watching it on, which is pretty awful. Okay, so that's the idea of the UUID. So what happens is, essentially, in the save load system, we create a dictionary of... Is it a dictionary? Is that what we call it in... yeah, it is called a dictionary in C#. That's right. I'm not getting things confused with Python or C++. So we create a dictionary that changes... Sorry, I said dictionary, highlighted directory. I actually don't know whether it's called a dictionary or is it called a map. Key value pair. Where am I using that? Let's see if I can find this. Level state. Level state is a dictionary, yeah. Dictionary from string to object. So the idea is that we have the UUID as the key for looking up a particular object in the scene. And then we have the object, which is the thing that we put through the serialization system. So it has to be something that is serializable. And that's the point there. So what we do basically is when we save, we go and get the level state, and that's the bit where we're turning it into a dictionary. So we're iterating over all the savable entities in the scene, and then we are calling the capture state function on them, which then returns an object which encapsulates the state, and it has to be serializable, and then that goes into the dictionary, and then the dictionary gets written out to the file using this binary formatter. And the load system does the inverse, where basically we get the state and then we update the level from the state, which again involves going through all the savable entities, looking them up in the dictionary and restoring them. If they're not in the dictionary, then I assume that's because we've destroyed them because they've been deleted from the world, so we destroy those game objects as well. That's the idea, basically. And then I added in this extra logic since last time, so that none of that was particularly new since the last update. But I've added in this extra logic for formatting the time and adding it to the timestamp and whether this is a manual save or an auto save. And that basically means that I end up with a file system. So on Windows it's stored under app data, local, then your company name, then your project name. And so that these are the save files that you end up with, and these are the ones I'm actually showing in the UI as well. Oh, only I can put links. Okay, well, I could spend a second just to go and bring that up. So what did we say they're called? They're called addressable entities, addressable assets. Have a quick look here. Asset bundle build, addressable names. Maybe this forum post is the one to look for. Oh dear. I guess I'm using up all the internets just streaming to you guys. Maybe. Sam reads documentation live. Anyway, this is probably a link. I guess you can Google it too. I'm not going to Google it for you. So yeah, some way of serializing. I might look into that before the next one. Do I encrypt the save game? No, I don't bother. What do you mean by encryption anyway? Because you can't really do it securely. There's no way that you can encrypt the save game in such a way that I need to download more RAM. I've got plenty of RAM. I don't think the RAM is an issue, as you will see here. I'm using quite a bit of it, but not by any means needing to download any more of it. So, what was the question? Encrypted save games. That's the one I was talking about. Yeah, so encrypted save games. The problem is if you encrypt something, you have to encrypt something with a key. Where do you get that key from and where do you store it? You have to store it on the user's machine, right? Because you need to have that information there to encrypt their save file. So if you're encrypting the file with a key that's available to them in your source code, is it really any better than just encrypting it in a format that is hard for them to read? It's binary anyway. It's not like I'm saving it in JSON. So I would assume no one's going to go and dig into the binary. And if they are, this is an RPG. It's not a multiplayer game where you can very easily cheat people or a very competitive game. I don't think it's of huge importance to encrypt the save files. I know you can do it. It makes things a little bit harder, a little bit more obscure, but doesn't fundamentally make it uncrackable. So there's I don't think much value in doing that. Yeah, Pocket Nerd, you are messing with me. That's fine. I do know that you're messing with me, really. Okay, so that's the basic structure. We've got savable entities, and the savable entities go into dictionaries and get serialized in binary. So the savable entity does an interesting thing because that itself iterates over all the components on an object. And going over all those components, putting them into a dictionary by the string type, essentially, which is sort of a unique identifier. I guess you could mess things up a little bit there, but not too much. And fundamentally, these components have to implement the iSavable interface, which asks it to capture the state and restore the state. That's the idea there. Let me just check something, because that looks a bit fishy. I thought I just saw something else here. Well, don't think that should return anything. Oh, it does, because that's, okay, that's doing capture state on the savable entity, but then the savable entity itself is calling capture state, passing in a dictionary which gets populated, and then passing that dictionary into the entity state. Okay, just one of them is modifying the dictionary that goes in, the other one is returning a new dictionary. Tomato, tomato. As you Americans would say. I would definitely say tomato. No question about it, right? It's definitely tomato. So the capture state is, as you can see here, it's taking in a dictionary type object. The restore state is taking in a read-only dictionary, which means that you can't modify the contents of it. That just means that this interface hasn't got access to the writable stuff. So the iSavable is implemented by any component that wants to be able to save itself. So that's how we've implemented it with things like the health system, for example. The health system implements iSavable as well as being a mono behavior. And then if we look further down in the health system, you can see it implements the capture state and restore state, and it is just doing this. It's doing a state, the name of the thing we want to put in the dictionary, the current health points get saved into that, and then if you stick in something that is serializable, it will be serialized by the binary formatter up at the top level. Okie dokie. Operation Gamma, I really like your dots to make sure Unity, YouTube, so many U's, Udemy, Unity, Unreal. That's not a U. YouTube. Okay, so yeah, on YouTube, Operation Gamma, well done for sharing that link in the best way you can. I will copy and paste it, make it easier for people to click. Oh, I'm not admin here. Oh, never mind. People can do that themselves. People can do that themselves. John St. Clair, thanks for saying, yep, binary, not plain text, makes it easier. Why make the player not able to easily cheat? I mean, if they want to, they can make it happen anyway. Yeah, exactly. It's single player. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. Udacity. Well, we're not on Udacity. They have lettuce, cucumber, tomatoes in front of them. I ask for tomatoes. They look at me with a blank stare. Where did that happen? Operation Gamma. Just Americans in general. Cucumber. I wonder whether you misspelt that or whether that's how they pronounced it. Oh, never mind. So, yeah, so this is how it's working, and actually we had to put a little hack in here that if we've restored the state, it says that the health points have been done by we end up with setting the max health points. And if it was done by restore, then we don't override those max health points. That's the reason for doing that. So you can see how you can basically come up with your custom saving logic per component. You've got this capture state and restore state, and it does all that lovely stuff. Now, the really tricky bit was around the character save and restore, because the character has vectors, and vectors are not serializable in terms of C# serialization. So what I've got down here is I've created my own serializable vector 3, which is castable to a vector, a normal vector 3. As you can see, it's a bit funny, isn't it? I'm having to cast it. So what's going on here? the vector3 has got this implicit operator, which I've told you about in the last stream, but I'll go over it one more time. The idea here is that this implicit operator allows you to implement casting, like implicit casting for this. If I removed implicit, then it would just be casting and you need to be explicit about the casting. But with implicit, it is able to automatically convert to a vector3 or from a vector3 to a serializable vector3. That's basically what's going on here. And then it's super simple. I mean, it just implements system serializable to make this serializable, and then we store the properties of this vector3 here as read-only, float, x, y, z, etc. So that's pretty straightforward, really. And that's why what I'm doing here when I'm saving it is I'm casting it to a vector3 because that's what I want to go into the state position. In fact, it would work just as well if I cast it to a vector3, I believe, just like that. In fact, but the thing in here is an object. So we do want to make sure that what's going in is a serializable vector3. That's right. That's why I put it there. That was a good reason. And here I could cast it. No, I have to cast it to a serializable vector3 because this is a dictionary from string to object. So we don't know what type's in there, and I'm telling it, by casting it, I'm telling it that this is a serializable vector3, and that's why we need to do this cast. I'll explain more in the course. There's all sorts of casting having to go on here. When you're serializing, this stuff tends to happen. You need to kind of jump out of the type system. And then this funny business, I was having the character jump around and not really work properly. And I found that it was because I was updating the transform from this restore state while it was active. And for some reason, there may be some code in here somewhere, or it might be part of the animator, but it just did not like being moved while we were active. So I had to go ahead and deactivate the character to move it and then reactivate. It seems really silly, but it did make a massive, massive difference. So that's some of the changes that we've had. Also, I had some UI stuff, so I'm going to go on to UI first, but I'm going to read the chat first. Hey Alec, what are you haying about? Is it something that I've said? Okay. So, UI. So I've put together this very, very simple UI. It's part of this game canvas that we've already got. And it is this pause menu. And have I done multiple screens for this pause menu? Well, I've just done multiple children of this pause menu, and I activate and deactivate them. So this main menu looks like so. I've got a load menu, which I activate and deactivate. And that's all done by a script here, the pause menu script. Let's go ahead and load it up, which just has some references to those different game objects, which it will deactivate and activate appropriately. It sets all these things as deactive. In fact, it should also do that for the save confirmation menu. So thanks for pointing that out, guys. Like so. And then what it does is, if we have the escape key down, we open the menu. If it doesn't have a currently active menu, then we hide the menu. That's just a toggle, very straightforward. Open menu is, as you can see, setting the currently active menu and deactivating the previously active menu, and so on, basically for the hide menu as well. Oh, that's just hiding the menu. Yeah, so open menu, and then we can show different screens. So, where's show menu? Here it is. Yeah, so that's setting the currently active menu screen to false, setting a new one, then setting it active. Fairly straightforward there. And what else are we doing? Yeah, we've got a callback on here to save, which calls out to the save system, and then shows the save confirmation menu when that's done, which is pretty straightforward too. So that's how we're doing most of the logic of showing and hiding the menus. Then the buttons themselves just call up. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. There was some interesting layout that I did. Let me see if I can find what the interesting layout was. So the main menu is not so interesting, I think. Or is it? No, this is a vertical layout group, which allows the buttons to be laid out vertically, as you might expect. That wasn't too hard. What was really, really weird was the load menu. Let's open that one up. So this has the scroll view, which is the weirdest thing in the world, in my opinion, because you go and put in a scroll view from the menu, and you get a whole host of things going on. So we get the whole thing, which we'll call the scroll view. We get this viewport object. Inside the viewport object, we have a content object, and then that's where you put the stuff that you want to be scrolled. And we have a vertical scroll bar. You also come in with a horizontal scroll bar too. And then you add content in here, and it'll actually expand past the end of this stuff. So that's super confusing. And then I found all sorts of stuff I had to do here. So let's see if I can expand this out and show you some of the weird things I was doing. Oh, come on. Let's bring that inspector and make it wider. Can we do that? Are you going to allow me, Unity? Aha, there we go. So there we go. What has it got? It's got this content size fitter, which basically is there to allow the vertical fit to be as small as possible to the objects inside it. If I did unconstrained, I think I could make it larger, possibly. That's a little bit weird. And a lot of it doesn't also update 100% of the time. So I was getting very, very confused. But I believe I made a commit message that summed up all the learnings I had. Scroll. Takeaways. Here we go. I left a helpful commit message because I knew I wouldn't understand why I did all this stuff later on. So I had to disable horizontal scrolling on the scroll rect. So if I go to the scroll view, you'll notice there's a script called scroll rec, which is basically responsible for moving that content around inside the viewport based on those scroll bars. And it has references to the horizontal scroll bar, to the vertical scroll bar, and then you have to tell it whether you want it to scroll vertically and horizontally. So I disabled horizontal, I removed the scroll bar entirely, and you then had to resize the viewport size, because you can see this viewport is slightly to the right because of this scroll bar. It was also slightly up because of a bottom horizontal scroll bar too. So that's hooking those things up. It'll auto hide this scroll bar and reposition with a spacing of 3 to if you don't actually have enough items to scroll, all that sort of good stuff. There's lots and lots of stuff in there. So what else was there that was weird? Content needs a content size fitter with preferred size on the vertical. So that's what I was finding, is that it wouldn't basically fit to the size of the children, which in our case are buttons. So the buttons are in a prefab under camera UI, I think. Save item here. So this is actually a button. It's got a button script, it's got image. But I also had to add on this layout element, which allowed it to override some of the properties of how layout works. And these are the properties of layout, by the way, which automatically get set by things like buttons. But in this case, I had to override the fact that it had a flexible width. So the button would grow to fill the whole of the horizontal space. That was one of the other takeaways. And the other one was that I had to put a preferred size content fitter on the parent, the content. So yeah, I put the control width, and then there was another one, take the buttons width changeable by the vertical layout. We need a layout element with flexible width. That's what I did. So what was this child control size? What was that about? Maybe that was up at the content level. Oh yes, in this vertical layout group, the size of the width was controlled by the child. Does that make sense? I'm not sure about it being the width. I would have thought it would be the height. Anyhow, this is very confusing and something that clearly I need to dig into a bit better before I go and teach you guys. Just going to read the chat very quickly, catch up on it for you guys. There's no one else on the stream with me, so I have to read, and you have to see how slow I am at reading. Commander in Cheeto. Love that one. Great. No, I know that all you Americans are not, as you put it, twits. We can definitely talk about static. You are priming me for a rant, Liz. Why not TMP? What's TMP? Help me out there. Yeah, Fox Damers, good to know that it's not just me, that you have to like set properties, reset them, maybe sometimes open a scene and close it and things change. Yeah, very, very easily confusing when you try to make a change and the change doesn't happen. Something I'm used to having happen in Unreal, but I haven't had it happen to me in Unity before, so it's slightly alarming. Static objects in Unity is a rendering computation benefit, particularly lighting, something you can, yeah. As for when to set static, when not to, yeah, never moved. I think we might also be talking about static in terms of static classes. But I think, no, Liz, you're talking about static. Okay, got it. I think that question's been answered then, hasn't it, Kim? Liz. Kimber. Liz. Text Mesh Pro. You'll have to fill me in. I've been on Unreal land for a while. Is Text Mesh Pro basically a UI framework? If so, let me know. No, Arlak, that word would not be better. That's not a very nice word. It is strange that they don't have max widths and stuff like that. It's a bit strange. A tiny scene. Yeah, static on objects and stuff. Well, you seem to be having a conversation there. I'm happy to leave that one there for you guys. So what is this? Text Mesh Pro? What's that? Text Mesh Pro. Ultimate text solution. Oh, is this because my text looks absolutely god-awful? Is that the idea? It's just like more Gordian, crazy-looking fonts. Okay. Why am I not using it? Could do. I mean, I haven't got around to the stage of making it look pretty yet. It's definitely not attempting to look pretty. It's just trying to look functional. Then I can, you know, basically style the buttons. That's the idea. They didn't catch on. They didn't see that I was alive. Takes them a little while. Yeah, so as you can see, it's just like really, really super hyper functional at the moment, and it's just going to be filled in with, hopefully, an artist will be able to make this look a bit more pretty than I. But I'm just the lowly programmer. I'm here just to make things look nice, make things work, and then someone else can make them look nice. But this is the result, which I think is quite nice. The scroll bar works nicely, works well. I can actually go ahead and delete all of those save games. Let's do that and just show you that they really are the things on the file system. So I'll go ahead and open the load menu. There you go, no previous saves. But at some point, 60 seconds away, we're going to have an auto-save populate in here. But I can also create a save, there, manual save created. And it gives you the timestamp of that save. At the moment, there's nothing more to it than that. I'm not doing anything with thumbnails. I don't want to go down that path when we've got so many other great features to implement with this RPG, such as, what have we got? We've got player stats. We're going to have to come up with things like dexterity and leveling up and applying your stats there. We're going to be carrying on with questing that Ben started. We're going to be doing, what else? Going to be doing some inventory, some shops, that kind of stuff. We're going to have importing stats from a spreadsheet. So Rick likes to do all of his stat working out and calculations and formulas in a spreadsheet. And what I'm going to look at doing is seeing if we can export those as CSVs and then have the characters pull their stats out of the CSVs. So that should be quite fun. That should be a nice way of being able to see all of your different character levels, all in a row, in a table in a spreadsheet, and then bringing that across. That's the idea. Spreadsheets, yay, says John St. Clair. I don't know why you're so excited about spreadsheets. Spreadsheets don't inspire the biggest joy in me, but maybe for you they have some really ringing appeal. But yeah, I think Rick is a big fan of spreadsheets. I mean, I am a big fan of spreadsheets. I use them all the time, but I wouldn't go around shouting around the houses about spreadsheets. Maybe you can explain your joy of spreadsheets to me. Drum and Jelly, they're having a side conversation here. Death by spreadsheets. Oh, you work in Excel every day, so it's just like going home for you. That's great. I'm only going to be exporting CSV, so it might not just be Excel. I think Rick's using Sheets, Google Sheets. So it's just going to be a CSV, really. The idea being that the spreadsheet's good at doing all the formulas. I'm not going to re-implement the formula stuff. So we can just have it save to a CSV asset and then have each guard of a particular level can go and look up in the CSV or the CSV class. It'll say, hey, I am a level 1 guard. What should my strength and dexterity be? Or what should my attack strength be? That sort of good stuff. Text Mesh Pro free and on any Unity. Yes, I noticed that. And then the rest of this is a debugging here. Strange to, have your build time go up so much with adding in statics. I wouldn't have expected that. But sometimes, are you talking about the bake? Maybe the bake can take quite a long time. Mine always seems to be doing baking, lighting and stuff. Okay, so I guess that pretty much brings you up to speed with where I am. You know what I'm doing next. In fact, the next thing I'm going to be doing is that spreadsheet importing stuff. So that's what we're going to be looking at doing next time. So I'm just going to open this up to a little bit of Q&A with you folks. So do go ahead and shout and put any questions. Hopefully not something that I need to help you debug, because that could take a long time. But any questions about content, RPG direction in particular, if you want to throw some Unreal questions at me, you can throw some Unreal questions at me, or just general game development stuff, or I don't know, anything that I might be able to answer fairly reasonably quickly. Do go ahead and ask it in the Q&A, in the chat, and I will answer. Hopefully. Maybe. Depends on the question. Don't ask really naughty questions. Okay, so what are you folks asking? How long have I been programming video games? Okay, so on and off, had then Macromedia Flash, and I was really into doing little animations, like the sort of thing, if you guys remember Newgrounds, Newgrounds is still around, I think. They had all sorts of cool animations, and I was really into that sort of stuff at 14, so I was doing that, and then I got into the idea that actually this thing has got ActionScript built in. You can actually move these characters around programmatically. So I started doing some of that, and that was really fun. So I made just like little stick men that would jump around, type platformer stuff, getting into really the basics of physics and delta time and applying a acceleration or by updating a velocity and stuff like that. So that was really fun. So I started my programming journey with Macromedia Flash. Then I kind of went over to learning various programming languages. Pardon me. The first one I learned actually was C++, but that was mainly through a book. So my first exposure to programming, but didn't get very far with it, let's say. I didn't do a lot with C++ because I didn't know what to do. So then I actually kind of moved on to web programming and did some stuff in Django and Python, tried to build a few websites, just playing around really. And then I guess, I did it on and off through school. And I arrived at uni and did a bunch of programming languages there. But after uni, I mostly have done not game development. So I've done game development ever since meeting Ben, basically. And we've been doing these courses together. So it kind of goes to show that you don't necessarily have that game development and programming and software engineering are not necessarily completely different and distinct disciplines. Obviously, game development's got a lot of specific stuff, but any particular field within software engineering has specific stuff. Web development has got some specific stuff, but there's a lot of general stuff about computers that you need to know. And that's what we really focus on, is giving you those most general skills possible, because I think you can fill in the more specific knowledge yourself quite easily when you've got those foundations. What was the question? How long I've been programming? So what? I guess since 14 on and off. So I'm now about 25. So yeah, a few years. Okay, what was the other questions? Inclusion culling, no naughty questions. I like, yeah, that's no fun. No spin the bottle type questions. Or truth or dare. Shockingly slow frame rate. Your computer's sounding odd, Liz. I'm not actually sure where I can get the frame rate. Maybe someone can tell me quickly where I can get the frame rate and see whether mine is doing poorly. Because on a 1080 Ti, that should not be the case. I'm not running a 1080 here. I'm running a 980, I think. Anyhow, someone will show me about FPS. Perceptual lucidity starting in basic. Basic's no worse, I guess. It's just different times, different programming. I've started a reminiscing thread about all the programming languages we've played with. What's some of the weirdest ones I've done? I've done some really odd ones at uni. So we did some... no, we didn't do Fortran. I'm trying to remember what it's called. This really weird logic language. Datalog was a Prolog. Prolog, strangest programming language in the world. You basically write a bunch of truth statements and then it solves them for you. Yep, that's the one. Prolog. Did some of that at school. At uni. That was fun. Also have a lot of fun with Haskell. If you've never done Haskell before, I keep telling people that it's a mind bender of a language. And if you feel comfortable with programming, if you don't feel comfortable with programming, don't go here. This will really put you off. If you feel comfortable with programming, go here to feel uncomfortable again, because it's really good for it's like a mind expanding drug for learning without the side effects, which is great. Except maybe there's a side effect that you start hating state everywhere you see it. So yeah, just take that into account. Pure Thrills, I'm not sure what you mean by what are the advantages of making a video game by knowing code. Do you mean by being able to program as opposed to using something like Game Maker? Maybe clarify that question for me. Vax assembly. Wow, perceptualisticity. That sounds like a trip. I bet Prolog's very useful in engineering. I mean, it's a fascinating language. It's basically a constraint solver, a language based around a constraint solver, which is quite cool. Clearly got a hardcore bunch of you guys here on the stream, or maybe you're the only ones willing to speak up. Cobol, I haven't done Cobol. I wonder whether it's just the assets, Liz. Are you using different assets? Is that why you're getting lower frame rates? Higher frame rates than our low frame rates? Or, don't know, maybe it's particle effects? But we're not running particle effects all the time. It would be strange. We can definitely look into a bit of performance stuff if necessary. But I only tend to do this stuff when it's necessary. Pure Thrills, you're saying that people can do it without learning to program. Yes, they can. And it's a great way of doing it. So very casual games, things that you don't want to kind of break the mold in terms of what's possible. Sure, you can do it without programming at all. But if you want to do a specific thing, if you have a specific thing in mind, then you're going to need to program, basically. If you're willing to adapt your idea to the tools available, then you don't necessarily need to program. You can kind of program around your idea and figure out which way to go and allow yourself to be more restricted by the tools available. So that's the pros and cons, I guess. A lot of very successful games, especially games in game jams, are made by people who don't program at all. Assets are very, very important to a game. So you either have to buy them or find someone who wants to make assets with you to make a game. So if you are an asset creator in the first place, but don't have the programming experience, there are ways for you to make great games, but it's also very important if you want to make anything that breaks the mold to have the programming experience too. Yeah, so if you're using different assets, that's going to be the main reason why you're getting very different performance. We might be having a lot more triangles in our scene. There might be some optimize. I don't really know. I haven't looked into the optimization. I can't really tell you. Different assets, because you want to top down. Yep. Honestly, say that if I worked with an actual programming language, you're bound to have a lot more flexibility. Yep. Yeah, occlusion culling, we can definitely do some of that. Extending the editor is fun. A little bit less documented in Unity though. They don't seem to document a lot of the editor stuff. Yeah, so C++, I'm not sure whether I like the fact that it's one of the first languages I learnt. I mean, I say I learnt C++, I learnt basic programming in C++. To learn C++ seems to take a lifetime. And yeah, there's all sorts of sayings about C++ that I really like. Particularly, I like that if C++ is your hammer, then everything looks like a thumb. I think that one's one of the best. I really love that one. I very much respect C++, but you can certainly feel like you're bashing your thumb with a hammer continuously. So, at least sometimes. Yep. But C++ is a fun, very powerful language, gets you close to the machine, which is fun. Something like C# doesn't, Python definitely doesn't, Haskell, like, what is a machine even? So C++ is really fun for being able to like get down to the bare metal and stuff like that. HTTP. Fox Damus, you say good books on on the editor stuff. Yeah, that would be good as a link if you can write it without the HTTP and exclude the dots and such like. Fortunately, not well documented. C++ is your favourite language, perceptual utility, but that was 15 years ago. Well, this is the thing about C++. It's a language that certainly has lasted a long time and is probably going to last a long while longer. And they do keep improving it, but in a kind of incremental way. So it has all of its flaws brought along with all of the improvements. So you have to learn to program with the improved syntax. And a lot of people overuse certain features, and it's one of those languages where you have to be super strict on coding style and say, we're not even going to use templates, or we're not even going to use this feature, or that's just like ridiculous, don't do it that way, even though it's really efficient, because it's so impossible to read. You've got to put in these restrictions on the programmers, because otherwise things go completely berserk. That's the gist of it. That's what I'd say. Any more questions? I think I'm going to wrap up, folks. I might take one last question if someone gets in there quickly. Yeah, Fox Damus, why don't you post that in the chat if you can find out, or post it over in Discord as well. That would be really awesome. Or send me, how could you send me? Send me a message on the community site. That would be really cool, and I can figure out a way of sharing it with other folks. That would be really fun. I'd like to post it out on Twitter or something, or in the groups. Perceptual lucidity, I have not seen it. Do you want to... What is your quest? What is your favorite color? Yes, Ola, we're going to be... ask me these questions 3. The other side, you see. So, have you seen my showcase? No perceptual lucidity. Ping me a link in the community is the best place to do that. Your favorite ice cream color. Favorite flavor of ice cream. Ooh. Good question. Well, it'd have to be gelato and not ice cream for a start. Oh, man. I really like... How's it called in English? What is Amarena? Amarena is like Morello cherry, I think. Amarena cherry. It's basically cherry. I really love that kind of sour with that ice cream. There you go. You got it now. That is my favorite ice cream. Okay, folks. Things have digressed, I feel. So it's probably a very good time for me to say goodbye and see you folks on the next stream, which will be same time next week. So don't forget to put it in your calendars, to put a reminder, to tell your spouse that they should remind you, all those sort of good things. Make sure, message for review. Yes, I'm going to show your link, Perceptual Lucidity. Yeah, basically, don't forget to be here next week and tell everybody you know who might be interested, obviously. Cool. So without further ado, I'm going to say bye and see you guys then. I've got to find, obviously, the page where I actually stop the stream. Here we go. Bye-bye.